Imagine you've spent your whole life walking with a stone in your shoe, but you've gotten so used to the pain, you don't even notice it anymore. That stone is your childhood, and everything you lived, or didn't live, during those years still shapes every relationship, every decision, and every fear you have today. Maybe no one ever said it out loud, but deep down, you know it's true. There was a love you didn't receive, an emptiness left in your chest that you've been trying to fill in 1,000 different ways. Why do you seek validation in all the wrong places? Why is it so hard for you to trust, to let go, or even to believe that you deserve to be happy? If you've ever felt this way, it's not a coincidence. There have been signs with you your whole life, and now it's time to finally see them clearly. In this video, we're going to uncover 10 powerful signs that you weren't loved the way you needed to be as a child, and more importantly, how to heal those wounds and take back control of your life. And let me warn you, the final sign might completely change the way you see yourself. I'm Gabriel, and if any of this has struck a chord with you, stay with me until the end. What you're about to hear could be the first step to freeing yourself from a burden you've carried for far too long. Why do you keep chasing other people's approval to feel like you matter? You've spent decades trying to prove that you're enough, that you deserve respect, that someone sees you, that someone chooses you. But tell me, how many times has that validation actually been enough? Never. Because the emptiness you feel can't be filled by someone else's gaze. It can only be filled by your own. And if you weren't loved the way you needed as a child, chances are you've been unknowingly searching for recognition in every corner, but it never comes the way you hoped. This constant need for external validation is one of the deepest wounds left by an unloved childhood. You grew up believing you had to earn love by being the obedient one, the strong one, the people pleaser, the one who never caused trouble. And now, as an adult, you repeat the same pattern everywhere, at work, in your family, in your relationships, always proving, always performing, always waiting for a word, a sign, something to make you feel like you're enough. But the truth is, when that validation does arrive, it lasts only a moment. Like a drop of water in the desert, it vanishes before it can quench the thirst. It reminds me of a man I met years ago. Let's call him Edward. He spent his life building an empire of achievements. First, he was the top student in his class. Then, the star employee at his company. Later, the father who gave everything for his kids, always going above and beyond. But at 70 years old, when he finally had the time to look back, he realized something terrifying. He had spent his entire life trying to be admired, but never allowed himself to just be. I did everything that was expected of me, he told me once, but I never really knew if it was what I wanted. Marcus Aurelius said that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. If all your energy is tied to external approval, you'll never be free. Because there will always be someone who doesn't like you, someone who criticizes you, someone who fails to see your worth. And if your sense of value depends on that, you become a puppet, controlled by everyone but yourself. But here's the truth most people don't want to face. No one's going to give you the love you haven't given yourself. No one's coming to fill you up, to rescue you, to convince you that you're enough. That's your job. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll start living with real peace. So ask yourself, who are you living for? To impress your kids, who barely call you? To earn your partner's admiration? To avoid society's judgment? And if the answer is that you've spent too long chasing approval from others, then it's time to stop. You don't need the world's applause to know you belong here. You don't need anyone to choose you because you were already chosen the moment you were born. God, the universe, life itself put you on this path with a purpose, and that purpose is not to spend your days begging for scraps of recognition. It's time to stop searching outside for what you can only find within. If you've spent your whole life seeking validation from others, it's because somewhere along the way you were taught that your own worth wasn't enough. But here comes the second heavy burden you've been carrying without realizing it: the struggle to set boundaries without feeling guilty. As a child, you learned that saying no was dangerous, that if you refused something, you risked being rejected, losing the little affection you received. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was given out based on what you did for others. If you were obedient, you got approval. If you dared to push back, you were punished with silence or with words that hurt more than any slap. Now, as an adult, you're still stuck in that same cycle. You give in when you don't want to, you accept things that hurt you, you sacrifice yourself to the point of exhaustion, and every time you try to draw a line, there's a voice inside telling you you're being selfish. But tell me, what's selfish about protecting your peace? What's wrong with saying enough when you feel like you're being used, when you realize certain people only show up when they need something from you? There's a big difference between being generous and being a slave to other people's expectations. And yet so many still believe that setting boundaries means letting others down, that saying no makes them a bad person. But the truth is, when you refuse to set boundaries, the person you're really letting down is yourself. Think about Jesus. He embodied love, compassion, but he never allowed himself to be manipulated. He didn't please everyone, he didn't cave to the pressure of the Pharisees, and he didn't let others use him for their own gain. So why should you? Why do you believe that love means enduring everything, putting up with everything, never saying stop? Even in Stoic philosophy, Epictetus taught that we can't control what others do, but we can control how we respond. And part of that response is deciding what we allow and what we don't. Look around you. How many times have you let others dictate what you do with your time, your energy, your life? Maybe your kids only call when they need money or when it's convenient. Maybe there are people in your circle who only show up when they want a favor but are never there when you need them. And the worst part? When you try to set a boundary, they make you feel guilty, like you owe them just for existing. But here's the truth. You don't owe anyone your life. You don't owe anyone your peace. And if you keep giving in out of fear of being alone, let me tell you something. The real loneliness isn't being without people. It's being surrounded by people who drain you and give nothing in return. So tell me, when was the last time you set a boundary and stood by it without guilt? If you can't remember, then it's time for a change. It won't be easy. The people who've gotten used to you always saying yes will push back when you start saying no. But your life is not a marketplace where others come to take what they want without paying the price of respect and reciprocity. You get to decide what you allow. And when you start protecting your energy, surrounding yourself only with those who truly add value, you'll discover something powerful. Not only will you not lose anyone who truly matters, you'll gain something far more important: your own freedom. If you've spent your life saying yes when you really wanted to say no, then chances are you've also fallen into another trap: the fear of loneliness that makes you accept the unacceptable. Because when you grow up without the love you needed, you learn to settle for crumbs. And as you get older, the fear of being alone can lead you to accept any kind of company, even the kind that drains and consumes you. But how many times have you felt lonelier with certain people than you would feel in the quiet of your own company? We've reached the third point of this video, and this is where everything starts to shift. Because loneliness is not the enemy you've been led to believe. The real trap is thinking you need to fill every empty space with someone else. Since childhood, we've been taught to fear being alone, as if our worth depended on how many people surround us. But the truth is, Some of the wisest decisions in life can only be made in the stillness of solitude. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations that peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. And yet we spend years running from silence, chasing distractions, clinging to relationships that hurt us simply because the alternative, being alone with ourselves, terrifies us. Think of someone you know, or maybe think of yourself. Someone who tolerates disrespect from their own children out of fear of losing them. Someone who stays in a lifeless relationship just because it's better than being alone. Someone who lets toxic friends take advantage of them over and over again because they'd rather endure that than face the echo of their own thoughts in an empty room. But tell me, what's worse? The absence of certain people or the presence of those who steal your peace? The practical strategy to break this cycle is simple in theory, but hard in practice. Learning to be alone without feeling abandoned. Solitude is a teacher, not a punishment. The problem isn't the lack of company, it's the belief that being with yourself isn't enough. I want you to ask yourself an honest question. What have you been avoiding out of fear of loneliness? What conversations have you been putting off with yourself? Instead of rushing to fill every quiet moment with outside noise, start building an inner world where you enjoy your own presence. The next time you feel the urge to cling to someone just to avoid being alone, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself if you really need that person or if you're just afraid of what the silence might tell you. Here at the Stoic Garden, we talk about facing reality head-on without sugarcoating it. And if these words are striking a chord with you, it's because deep down, you know it's time for a change. If you want to keep diving deeper into these reflections, subscribe now and hit like. It costs nothing, but it means a lot and helps us keep sharing these messages with those who need them. I also want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what country you're watching from and write the phrase, "I'm learning to be alone without fear." Because this journey is just beginning, and the lessons to come may be the ones that finally set you free from what's been weighing you down the most. If learning to be alone without fear is already a challenge, what comes next goes even deeper. Because even when you choose to let go of the people who hurt you, there's still something inside you repeating the same story. A constant whisper that keeps you from fully trusting anyone. We've reached the fourth point in this video. The inability to trust others without expecting betrayal. If love in your childhood was uncertain, conditional, or even non-existent, then you learned to live with your guard up. Every person who got close was quietly scanned for danger. A shift in tone, a message left unanswered, a vague expression, everything became a sign that sooner or later you were going to get hurt. And over time, that fear became your truth, your way of relating to the world. Now, you look at any act of affection with suspicion, because deep down, you believe there's a catch. That love is a debt that will one day come with interest. So you build a wall so high around yourself that no one can get through, not even those who truly care about you. The problem is, absolute distrust doesn't protect you. It only isolates you. You think you're avoiding pain, but in reality, you're sentencing yourself to a life without real connection. Seneca put it bluntly, "There is no greater poverty than the one who fears to trust." A life without trust is a life of quiet paranoia, closed hearts, and missed chances. Maybe that's why you've pushed away people who were truly worth it. Maybe that's why you feel alone, even when you're surrounded by others. The trap of distrust creeps in quietly. At first, it feels like a smart defense mechanism. I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want to be wrong again. But over time, what started as protection becomes a prison. Distrust becomes automatic. a reflex that sabotages relationships before they even have a chance to grow. You think you're being cautious, but really, you're shutting yourself off from people who could add something beautiful to your life. The irony is that the more you fear betrayal, the more likely you are to end up living in a world where no one can truly reach you. And this is where both Stoicism and faith offer a clear answer. You can't control what others do, but you can choose how you live. This isn't about blindly trusting everyone. It's about learning to tell the difference between wisdom and fear. It's about realizing that not everyone is here to hurt you. That just because people failed you in the past, it doesn't mean the entire world works the same way. So ask yourself, how many opportunities have you lost because you refused to trust? How many relationships stayed at the surface because you never allowed them to grow? And more importantly, how long are you going to keep protecting yourself from a pain that might never come? Freedom doesn't come from total safety. It comes from the courage to live without fear. From opening the door just enough to let the light in, no matter how long you've been sitting in the dark. If you live with distrust lodged deep in your chest, sooner or later you'll fall into another trap just as destructive: extreme self-demand and the fear of failure. We've reached the 5th point in this video, and this is where many people face the hardest truth of all. You've spent your life trying to prove your worth at the cost of your own peace. As a child, you learned that to be loved, you had to perform. Be the strong one, the smart one, the one who never messed up. And now, even though the years have passed, you're still living by that same rule. You don't allow yourself to make mistakes. You can't forgive yourself for slipping up. You're always pushing harder, always feeling like it's still not enough. But tell me, when will it be enough? When will you stop punishing yourself for not being perfect? When will you realize that the voice in your head telling you to do more, to be more, isn't yours? It's the voice of a past that no longer has the right to control you. The fear of failure is an invisible chain that keeps you locked in a cycle of constant dissatisfaction. You've achieved things, you've overcome obstacles, but you never let yourself enjoy any of it. There's always something more to do, something more to prove. And the worst part? This relentless self-demand doesn't just steal your joy, it paralyzes you. Because when failure isn't just a possibility, but a death sentence for your self-esteem, you end up avoiding any kind of risk. You don't try new things. You don't explore. You don't give yourself permission to mess up. And so your life becomes a prison of impossible expectations, where every day is a battle against an enemy that only exists in your mind. But here's a truth most people don't want to face. There is no growth without failure. There's no learning without falling. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Failure isn't the end of the road, it's part of the road. If you keep living with the obsession of getting everything perfect, you'll end up wasting the time you have left in a pointless war against your own humanity. Breaking this cycle isn't easy, but it's possible. And it starts with a choice: to accept that you are enough, even with your flaws. That you don't have to prove anything to anyone. That your worth doesn't lie in what you accomplish, but in who you are. And that every time you deny yourself the right to fail, you're also denying yourself the right to live. So tell me, how many more years are you going to keep punishing yourself? How many chances will you let pass by because you're afraid they won't turn out perfectly? When will you finally allow yourself to just be? There are no easy answers, but one truth is undeniable. Time won't wait for you to stop being so hard on yourself. You either choose to set yourself free now, or you'll keep carrying a burden that no one ever asked you to bear. If you keep living under the tyranny of self-demand and the fear of failure, you'll eventually fall into an even darker pit, the tendency to sabotage your own happiness. We've reached the sixth point in this video, and now it's time to face an uncomfortable truth. If you never received love as a child, if you grew up feeling unworthy of affection, care, or recognition, then you may be the one who now destroys every chance at joy before it even has a chance to take root. Because when you spend a lifetime expecting the worst, when you grow up certain that nothing good ever lasts, you eventually become the architect of your own misery. Picture this. After putting it off for years, you finally decide to travel, to enjoy yourself, to treat yourself to something nice. But the moment you do, something inside you starts whispering, "What if it's a waste of money? What if something goes wrong? What if this is a mistake?" Or maybe you meet someone who genuinely values you, treats you with respect, but instead of letting the relationship grow, you search for flaws, for red flags, for reasons to pull away until you manage to break it all. Or perhaps after years of giving everything to everyone else, you finally set boundaries, take care of yourself, start thinking about your own needs. And just when you begin to feel good, a crushing wave of guilt hits you, like you don't deserve that peace. Why do we do this? Because deep down, when we've been taught that love is rare and conditional, we become incapable of receiving it without expecting a catch. We believe, often without realizing it, that we don't deserve it. That if things are going too well, it's only a matter of time before they fall apart. So instead of waiting for life to take it away, we beat it to the punch. We tear it all down ourselves. It's a self-destructive pattern disguised as caution, a learned fear that keeps us trapped in the same old prison. And the worst part? Most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. I see it again and again. People who, after years of hardship, finally reach a point in life where they could enjoy a little peace, but instead of embracing it, they cling to problems that don't exist. They sabotage themselves with doubts, with excuses, with endless what-ifs. It's never the right time, never the right person, never enough. And just like that, without even noticing, they waste the only thing that truly matters: time. Because money can be regained, opportunities can come back, but the years never do. Every day you spend holding yourself back from happiness is a day you'll never get back. So tell me, how many more times are you going to block your own happiness because you're afraid it won't last? How many chances will you let pass because you're still listening to the voice that tells you you don't deserve it? Stoicism teaches us that life is uncertain, that we can't control what's coming, but we can choose how we live what we have today. Nothing in this world is guaranteed, not pain, not joy, but if you keep rejecting moments of peace because you're afraid they'll end, the only guarantee is that you'll never fully experience them. And in the end, the question won't be whether you could have been happier, but why you never gave yourself the chance to try. If you've spent years sabotaging your own happiness, there's something deeper you need to face. Because behind every ruined opportunity, every rejected joy, every fear disguised as caution, there's a hidden reason: the struggle to identify what you truly want. We've reached the seventh point in this video, and this may be the hardest truth to accept. Maybe you spent so long living according to other people's expectations, adapting to what you were supposed to be, that now, when you ask yourself what you really want, you can't find a clear answer. Look at yourself now. You've already crossed more than half the road of your life. You've raised children, built a career, fulfilled what was expected of you. But if those roles were taken away today, if no one depended on you, if there were no more duties or obligations, would you know what to do with your time? Or would you feel lost, empty, without direction? Because that's what happens to those who never learn to truly listen to themselves. If for decades you've been the one solving everyone's problems, the one putting their own dreams on hold for the sake of family, the one who was always available. It's only natural that now you struggle to answer the simplest question: what do you want? The problem is, without a clear answer, you keep moving on autopilot. You wake up every day to a routine that no longer fulfills you, holding on to relationships that stopped giving you something long ago, repeating the same habits without asking yourself if they still make sense. And so life keeps going, and you keep waiting. But tell me, waiting for what? For the answer to magically appear, for someone to come and tell you what to do, for destiny, God, or the universe to write your purpose in flashing letters across the sky? It doesn't work like that. Clarity doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes when you stop, when you dare to question everything, when you have the courage to look at your life without excuses and admit that something needs to change. But that takes guts, because admitting you don't know what you want means accepting that you may have lived for years by someone else's rules, that maybe you spent decades in a marriage that never made you happy, that you gave your energy to a job you never truly cared about, that you let go of so many things because of fear, comfort, or pure momentum. And now comes the key question: what are you going to do with what's left? Because you can keep pretending it's fine not to know. You can keep avoiding the discomfort of asking yourself the hard questions. You can keep postponing the life you actually want. Or you can start rebuilding. Start listening to yourself. Start exploring, trying new things, until you find something that makes your soul come alive again. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much time you think you've lost. What matters is what you choose to do today. But no one's going to do it for you. No one is going to show up with a permission slip that says, you can start over now. No one's going to hand you the meaning you've been searching for. If you want to stop living halfway, you have to be the one to take the reins. Because in the end, the saddest thing isn't reaching the end of your life without having had it all. It's reaching the end, never having figured out what you really wanted. If you've gone your whole life without asking yourself what you truly want, it's only natural that you've taken refuge in the one thing you thought you could control: your environment, your relationships, the decisions of those around you. But here comes a hard truth that most people aren't ready to face. We've reached the 8th point in this video: hypervigilance and the need to control everything. Because when a loveless childhood teaches you that the world is uncertain and nothing is guaranteed, you spend the rest of your life trying to hold everything together with a tight grip. You believe that if you plan every detail, anticipate every obstacle, and stay one step ahead of every problem, you'll avoid pain, loss, disappointment. But the truth is, all you're doing is exhausting yourself and living in a constant state of tension. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you felt like you had to step in and make sure everything was done right? How many times have you tried to correct others, guide them, warn them so they wouldn't make mistakes? And the worst part, how many times have you ended up frustrated because no matter how hard you tried, people still did what they wanted, things still went wrong, and life remained as unpredictable as ever? That's because control is an illusion. You can spend your days planning, preventing, preparing, but you'll never have total control over anything or anyone. The strategy to break this pattern is simple, but it demands something most people fear: letting go. Let go of your obsession with what others do or don't do. Let go of the belief that if you're not in charge, everything will fall apart. Accept that no matter how hard you try, you can't stop your kids from making mistakes, you can't control your partner's behavior, and you can't stop life from throwing curveballs. Epictetus said it plainly: some things are up to us and some are not. Peace comes from knowing the difference. But up to now, you've lived as if everything is up to you, and all it's brought you is frustration, anxiety, and endless fatigue. If you truly want to reclaim your peace, start with this exercise today. Every time you feel the urge to control a situation, pause. Ask yourself, does this really depend on me? If the answer is no, take a deep breath and let it go. Don't say that warning you were about to say. Don't step into someone's life unless they've asked you to. Don't waste your energy fighting what can't be changed, because every time you try to control the uncontrollable, you're pouring your energy into a battle that's already lost. The change won't happen overnight. This isn't about becoming indifferent or stopping your care for those you love. It's about understanding that worry changes nothing, that spending your days trying to stop the world from turning is a slow form of self-destruction. If you want peace, you have to do the hardest thing of all. Trust. Trust that life will keep moving, that everyone has their own path, that even if you let go of the reins, the universe won't fall apart. But that trust won't come from outside. It has to come from within, from the certainty that no matter what happens, you'll have the strength to face it. And if you don't learn this now, you'll spend the rest of your life fighting a war against the wind. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is beginning to wake up. But be careful. This is the point where many people turn back. They've heard the uncomfortable truths. They've seen clearly the patterns that have held them captive for years. But when it's time to take action, they find reasons not to. And just like that, they go back to the same routine, the same cycle of complaints, frustration, and excuses. Because change is scary. And one of the most dangerous traps is the feeling of emptiness that nothing seems to fill. When you spend your life trying to control the uncontrollable, when your identity is built on effort, endurance, and the need to prove that you can handle everything, a moment comes when you ask yourself, if I stop fighting, what's left? And that's when the emptiness shows up. That feeling of not knowing who you are if you're not fixing problems, meeting someone else's expectations, clinging to constant worry. It's an abyss most people would rather not face, because to do so means admitting they've been running on a treadmill for decades without knowing where they were going. That emptiness is the greatest self-deception of all, because it convinces you that you need something external to fill it. A relationship, a new goal, a distraction, anything to avoid the silence. But here's a truth few are willing to accept. The emptiness isn't meant to be filled. It's meant to be inhabited. It's not about desperately finding something to cover it up. It's about learning to be in it without fear. Because what you're calling emptiness is actually the space left behind when you stopped living for everyone else. And if you don't learn to coexist with that space, you'll keep searching for things that can never complete you. How many times have you tried to fill that feeling with things that only gave you temporary satisfaction? Maybe with work, unnecessary purchases, people who were never meant to stay, or an obsession with staying busy. And every time one of those attempts failed, you ended up right back where you started, feeling incomplete, like something was missing. But what's missing isn't out there. It never was. It's not a child calling more often. It's not a partner who brings you stability. It's not an activity that keeps you distracted. It's your own presence, your ability to be with yourself without feeling like something inside you is broken. Stoicism teaches us that peace doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from detachment, not from finding more things to define ourselves by, but from letting go of the need to be defined by anything external. And this is what so few people understand. The emptiness isn't a problem, it's an opportunity, a space where you can finally build something real, where, for the first time, you can choose who you want to be without anyone else's expectations. But that's only possible if you stop running, if you sit with yourself in complete honesty and accept that there's nothing you need to go find outside of you. So tell me, are you going to keep running in circles, trying to fill a void with things that don't work? Or are you finally going to stop and look directly at what you've been avoiding your whole life? Because the real answer doesn't lie in what you add. It lies in what you're willing to let go of. If emptiness has been your shadow for years, facing it will be one of the hardest battles of your life. And this is where many people fall short, not because they can't change, but because the moment they start to make progress, something inside pulls them back to what's familiar. It's fear disguised as comfort, the old habit of choosing familiar suffering over the uncertainty of something new. We've reached the 10th point in this video, and here we confront the rawest truth of all, the resistance to receiving genuine love. Maybe you haven't noticed it, but every time someone approaches you with real affection, something inside you shuts down. You don't reject it outright, but you minimize it, doubt it, sabotage it. You don't know how to receive love without feeling like you owe something in return, without sensing an invisible debt. And the worst part is, you don't even trust it. You think that if someone is kind to you, it's because they want something, that if they treat you with tenderness, it's because they haven't seen the real you yet, that if they show you love, it's only a matter of time before they take it away, because that's how it was before. Because as a child, love came with conditions, expectations, and a price. And now, even after all these years, you still expect love to work the same way. This is why so many people, after starting a process of healing, end up going backwards. It's not just fear of failure, it's fear of being seen, of being cared for, of mattering to someone without having to earn it. Because when love shows up without demands, without hoops to jump through, without you having to prove your worth, it makes you feel exposed. You start to wonder if it's real, if it will last, if you can trust it. And in that moment, many people would rather walk away than risk losing it. They convince themselves it's too late, that they don't need anyone anymore, that it's safer to be alone. But deep down, they're just repeating the same old story, rejecting love before love has a chance to reject them. If you want this change to last, there's only one way forward. You have to allow yourself to receive, not just love, but respect, care, recognition. You have to train yourself to accept sincere gestures without questioning them. The next time someone gives you a compliment, don't brush it off with a joke, accept it. The next time someone helps you without expecting anything in return, don't feel indebted, just thank them. The next time someone wants to be with you simply because they enjoy your presence, don't look for a hidden motive, just let it be. Because if you keep closing yourself off, if you keep expecting everything to be a trick, you'll never break the cycle. Stoicism teaches us that our greatest enemy is not out there, it's within. And if you've spent your life believing that guarding yourself from love was the way to avoid pain, it's time to see things clearly. You don't need to stay on defense. You don't need to keep fighting the people who truly want to be in your life. Because in the end, the most painful thing isn't the absence of love. It's having love within reach and rejecting it out of fear. So tell me, after everything you've heard in this video, are you going to keep running, or are you finally going to give yourself the chance to receive? If you've made it this far, you're different. Not everyone is willing to look at their life with honesty, to recognize patterns that have been there for decades, to accept that nothing will change until they decide to change. Most people choose to avoid discomfort, to keep blaming the past, to come up with excuses for staying stuck. But you're still here, still listening, still feeling that spark inside that's telling you it's time to do something with everything you've learned. Now you know. What you lived through in your childhood left deep marks, but it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. You can break the chains. You can stop repeating the same story again and again, but only if you take control and stop waiting for something outside of you to do it for you. Many people will keep denying the truth. They'll keep believing their suffering is inevitable, that what they feel has no solution, but not you. Because something inside you woke up today. And what you do with that is what will make the difference between staying trapped in the same old cycles or taking a real step toward a life that finally makes sense. It's a decision you can't avoid. And there are only two paths: keep justifying why you can't change, or stand up and take full responsibility for your life. Choose wisely. I want you to leave a comment with the phrase, "Today I choose to set myself free," along with your country, because I want to see how many of you truly understood this message and are ready to take that first step. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. I'm not here to give you false hope or tell you that everything will magically change just by hearing these words. I'm here to remind you that you have the power to rebuild yourself, that life can still be yours if you choose to claim it, but no one else is going to do it for you. Subscribe now and become part of this community of people who've decided to wake up. People who aren't looking for easy comfort anymore, but real transformation. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because today might be their wake-up call too. And if you want to keep going deeper into how to take control of your mind and your life, there are 2 videos waiting for you on the screen. Don't let this conversation end here.